Hi, Gerhard Bloom, once again looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So yeah, I'm going to run my gob on about this Hamas situation and some just absolute insanity from the left. You have on TikTok viral videos that have gone viral about young, very stupid women who know absolutely nothing about history circulating discussions about Osama bin Laden's letter to America. And they're like, oh, this is, like a light bulb going off in their very dim heads. Outrageous. Yeah, bin Laden trying to justify his atrocities, 9/11 and attacks preceding and following, by referencing, this third worldism rhetoric, right? Yeah, he's liberating, fighting for the people of Palestine. No. It's a global jihad that he is after. And ISIS, Islamic Jihad, Jamaat Islamiyah, all of these Islamist terrorist organizations, they have a globalist agenda. Why? Because they're following in the footsteps of Muhammad. And I mentioned this before, right? Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, they were all Christian lands. And they got brought, into heel. They got, either tortured and enslaved, dimitude, right? That's semi-slavery, groveling, humiliation. And I don't mean accidental humiliation. I mean, humiliation was on the menu. So, of course, they converted to Islam or escaped. And absolutely awful, these young students, viral videos in the United States, young women in the United States spreading this poison. And they are following the example of, cultural elites, right? In the immediacy after the 9/11 attacks, where almost 3,000 innocent Americans were killed in a terrorist attack, you had these intellectuals, pseudo-intellectuals, university professors, authors, cultural figures, justifying and excusing away these atrocities. No. It is awful. So moving on from that, let's look at the prospect. Joe Biden and his administration is telling Israel that, oh, no, it can't engage in an occupation of Gaza. Well, who is going to occupy Gaza to make sure the citizens of Israel are safe? You get rid of Hamas, that ideology is still infecting the Palestinians. Here's proof, right? Pardon me. A recent poll from Arab World for Research and Development. Does that sound like a Zionist or Jewish organization for you? Arab World for Research and Development. 80% of those polled from southern Gaza and the West Bank, 80% had positive support for Hamas. And its Al-Qassam brigade, 60% were extremely favorable in their views, and another 16%, somewhat positive. Somewhat positive. How could, if the Canadian government had undertaken, or I as a former Canadian soldier, if Canadian soldiers had engaged in that sort of barbarism, I would be outraged. I would be absolutely outraged and ashamed. No, these people are proud of it. 98% of those polled, the slaughter made them feel prouder of their identities as Palestinians. Does that sound like they want peaceful coexistence with Israel? They want Israel wiped off the map. Events have proved it. Now, moving on from that, Candice Owens and Ben Shapiro, bit of a back and forth on this. No, the truth isn't somewhere in the middle. The truth is on Ben Shapiro's side. I don't know what is going on with Candice Owens. She is absolutely wrong. There is no excuse for these murderous atrocities, and there's no golden mean here. There's a right and there is wrong. The Hamas, these guys are fascists, engaged in atrocities that would make a Nazi blush. Absolutely horrific. And moving on from them. And this might cost me some support here. Yes, Tucker Carlson, I'm a huge fan of his, huge fan. He was a major catalyst in getting my head out of my ass, right? I came out of university, slightly left of center. It's awful. It's poisonous nonsense. And he woke me up to what the media was lying to me about for years. At any rate, yes, he condemned these attacks and people are outraged, but he thinks too much emotion. We got our own problems in the United States. Well, I'm a Canadian, but I get him. I share his pain. I've done videos on the fentanyl crisis, the open border. It is an absolute catastrophe and it needs to stop. But the level of horror. I'm not Jewish. I don't have Jewish relatives. I do have mezuzah on my door, thanks to Dennis Prager, me showing my support for the citizens of Israel and for Jews around the world. So don't go fucking knocking on my door and try to intimidate me thinking I'm Jewish. I'm not going to say I'm not Jewish. You'll get greeted with a punch in the face. And the Star of David along with the cross, right? No. And I could not be more outraged or horrified. At least on one occasion, a baby was burned to death in an oven. Imagine that. The baby burnt alive. Oh, a woman raped and shot in the head, raped some more. Necrophilia. They cut off her breasts. Kidnapping little kids, right? Awful. This level of barbarism. I don't care if it was Jews. I don't care if it was Palestinians. Outrageous. There's no excuse for that. If Israeli soldiers were engaged in this, I would be outraged and morally horrified. No, you can't get too outraged by these horrors. These are horrors of humanity. These Jews are human beings. And same as Palestinians. And yes, I care when little Palestinian kids are killed in war, in bombing. But it's a sad reality. There were scores and scores of German civilians who were killed in the Second World War, bombed to death by the Allies. Dresden, Hamburg, Berlin, and scores of Japanese, right? Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Tokyo. It was a necessary evil, but it is an evil, and innocent lives lost, always a tragedy. But Israel does not target innocent civilians. It is nonsense. Anyways, just some thoughts. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And oh, by the way, banned from TikTok. The ones, TikTok spreading these poisonous videos supporting Osama bin Laden and his letter to America, they kicked me off. The last video, if you haven't seen it, was about the slanders against Israel. The BBC reporting that Israel was targeting Arab speakers and shooting medical staff. If they were targeting Arab speakers, they'd be killing everybody in Gaza, right? And the West Bank. They're all Arab speakers. No, Israel had brought in Arab speakers and portable incubators to try and rescue little babies. Right, awful. So I point this out on TikTok. It was my final warning. I'm kicked off. Of course, I've got an appeal in on it, but this just shows you. China, right? China controls TikTok. Do you think there are videos in China, calling out the oppression of the Uyghur people, Muslims in China? Slave labor camps for the Uyghurs, Muslims. Do you think there are, TikTok videos about that oppression? Absolutely not. On the other hand, they don't allow any of this poisonous nonsense in their country, but they love it in the United States, in the Western world. Why? Because it corrodes morality. It corrodes our values and our sense of pride in Western civilization. And they are eroding it, as witnessed by the fact of those stupid young women spreading, bin Laden's propaganda. Anyways, that's my rant for tonight. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And please do check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. It's available on Amazon. It's not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues could not be more important. And yes, even if you follow these videos, I promise you, you're in for a lot of surprises and some significant data. And if I don't mind saying so myself, I think it's a very engaging read, and people who've read it love it. Check out the reviews. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Bye-bye now.